Your alarm goes off, you sat up, and you feel like you got hit by a truck. 8 full hours on the clock, and yet your limbs feel heavy, your brain is wrapped in fog, and it takes 20 minutes just to remember your own name. Some mornings you wake up sharp after 6 hours. Other mornings, 8 hours leaves you wrecked. Same body, same bed, wildly different results. So what actually decides whether you wake up clear or wake up crushed? It is not the number of hours on your sleep tracker. It is something happening in your brain in the exact moment your eyes open. This is the real reason you wake up tired. Here is what makes this so maddening. You did everything you were told to do. You put in the hours, you earned that rest, on paper, and your body still handed you a bill you did not expect. So if hours are not the currency your body actually cares about, what is it measuring instead? There is a reason two people can sleep the exact same stretch of night and land in completely different bodies by morning. And the answer is not hiding in your sleep tracker at all. It is hiding in a rhythm your brain runs every single night, one you have never been taught to see. Here is what almost nobody tells you about sleep. It is not one long flat stretch of unconsciousness, like a light switching off and back on. 8 hours later, it moves. It cycles. Roughly every 90 minutes your brain travels through a loop, dipping from light sleep down into deep sleep, back up through lighter stages, and into REM, where your eyes dart and your mind dreams. Then the loop starts again. A full night is not one block of rest. It is 4 or 5 of these loops, stacked back to back, each one a complete lap through different depths of unconsciousness. And here is the part that changes everything. How many of those laps you finish matters less than exactly where you are inside the lap the moment you wake up. Think of each 90-minute cycle like a dive. You start near the surface, in light sleep. You sink down into deep sleep, the deepest, most far from awake part of the dive. Then you rise back up toward the surface before diving again. If your alarm goes off while you are floating near the top, waking up is gentle. But if it goes off while you are down at the bottom of that dive, deep in slow-wave sleep, your body gets yanked upward far faster than it is built to travel. That yank is not just a feeling, it is a chemical event. While you sleep, a substance called adenosine, one of the main drivers of sleepiness, gets slowly cleared out of your brain, especially during deep sleep. This clearing process takes time. It is not instant. So if you are pulled out of deep sleep before that process finishes, you wake up with leftover sleep chemistry still sitting in your brain, even though your eyes are open and your feet are on the floor. That mismatch, a brain still chemically primed for sleep, forced into a body that is now expected to function, is what produces that heavy-limbed, thick-headed feeling in the first 20 or 30 minutes after waking. Your brain is not broken. It is simply running two operating systems at once for a little while, and neither one has taken over yet. Compare that to what happens when a cycle ends naturally. As a sleep cycle winds down toward its lighter stages, your nervous system has already started shifting gears. Body temperature nudges upward. Certain wake-promoting brain activity starts to rise before you even open your eyes. It is a gradual handoff, like a dimmer switch slowly brightening a room, rather than someone flipping the lights on in the dark. Waking up during this phase feels almost effortless. Your eyes open and your brain is basically already there, waiting for you. That is the difference between waking up sleep-drunk, disoriented, groggy, needing several minutes to even recall where you are, versus waking up and feeling reasonably alert almost right away. Same act of opening your eyes. Two completely different internal starting points. This is also why your body seems to resist being woken abruptly in the first place. It was never designed around a sound going off at a fixed clock time. It was designed around completing these loops and surfacing at the top of one, the way you would naturally come up for air. An alarm does not know or care which stage you are in, it just goes off. And because bedtimes tend to drift, going to bed an hour later on some nights, earlier on others, staying up late scrolling one night and crashing early the next, your cycles do not land in the same place relative to your alarm from one day to the next. Some mornings that alarm happens to catch you near the surface. Other mornings it catches you deep in the dive. Same alarm time, same person, wildly different outcome, simply because the cycles underneath shifted. And the fog from a badly timed wake-up does not necessarily clear the moment you get out of bed. Sleep inertia, the technical name for this groggy in-between state, can linger. For some people, it fades within half an hour. For others, especially after being pulled from a particularly deep stage, it can drag on for a couple of hours, quietly draining focus and motivation without them ever connecting it back to how they woke up. That afternoon crash you assumed was just from a heavy lunch or a boring meeting may actually be the tail end of a mid-cycle wake-up from earlier that morning, still echoing through your system hours later. Now here is the part that trips people up the most. Hitting snooze feels like it should help. 9 more minutes of rest seems like mercy for a groggy brain. But those 9 minutes are often enough time to slide back into the beginning of a brand new sleep cycle, without ever getting far enough to finish it. So when the alarm goes off again, you are not waking up gently from light sleep. You are being yanked out of another cycle you just started, sometimes even deeper into it than the first interruption. Repeated snoozing can stack these mid-cycle interruptions on top of each other, each one adding its own small dose of chemical mismatch, which is part of why some snooze-heavy mornings feel worse the more times that button gets pressed, not better. So if the problem is not the number of hours, and it is really about where in the cycle you happen to be when you wake up, then there has to be some kind of off switch for the fog. And there is. It is simpler than it sounds. The goal is not more sleep. The goal is waking up at the end of a cycle, instead of in the middle of one, catching yourself near the surface of that dive, instead of down at the bottom of it. Here is the tricky part. You cannot consciously steer your way through a sleep cycle. You cannot decide, halfway through the night, to skip ahead to a lighter stage. Nobody can control that minute by minute. But your body has a scheduler running in the background that you can influence, a rhythm that governs roughly when your cycles start and roughly how they line up across the night. And that scheduler responds to one thing more than almost anything else: consistency in when you wake up. So for 1 week, try this. Pick a wake-up time, any reasonable time that fits your life, and get up at that exact time every single day, including weekends, including the mornings you would normally sleep in. Not because sleeping in is bad, but because a wake time that constantly drifts, keeps shifting where your cycles land, relative to your alarm, one fixed anchor point, held daily, gives your internal clock something stable to build around. Over time, your cycles start arranging themselves so that a lighter stage is more likely to be sitting right at that hour, waiting for you, instead of leaving it up to chance. And when that groggy, heavy feeling does show up on a given morning, it helps to remember what it actually is. It is not weakness. It is not a sign your body is falling apart or aging faster than it should. It is your brain caught mid-transition, doing exactly what it is built to do when it gets pulled out before it is ready, still clearing the last of its sleep chemistry while your eyes are already open. Understanding that turns a confusing, almost embarrassing moment into something explainable. Your body is not betraying you, it is just running a process that got interrupted partway through. Over the coming week, pay attention to that specific window, the first 20 minutes after your alarm goes off. Notice whether the heaviness in your limbs feels a little lighter than usual. Notice whether it takes less time to feel like yourself, to remember what day it is, to want to get up, rather than lie there staring at the ceiling. You are not looking for a dramatic transformation overnight. You are watching for small shifts, mornings that feel slightly less like wading through wet sand. One thing can quietly undo all of this progress, and it is the snooze button. It feels harmless, even kind, giving yourself 9 more minutes. But those 9 minutes are often just enough time to dip back into the start of a new cycle, one you then get yanked out of all over again. Every time that happens, you are working against the very alignment you are trying to build. So when the fixed wake time hits, the most useful thing you can do is simply get up right then, rather than negotiating with yourself for a few more minutes that will likely cost you more than they give. Think back to the start of all this, that alarm going off, jolting you awake in the middle of deep sleep, leaving you foggy and heavy for no reason you could explain. That was never bad luck, that was timing. And once your wake time becomes something fixed and dependable, instead of something that drifts night to night, that same alarm becomes far less likely to catch your brain down at the bottom of a cycle. It starts landing more often near the surface, where waking up is simply lighter. Your groggy mornings were never really a mystery about how much you slept. They were always about when, in that quiet rhythm running underneath your sleep, you happened to be pulled back into the world.